So again, welcome to our workshop today. My name is Laura Leese, and I am also a spiritual director. And I'm going to be walking us through a process that has been very meaningful for me personally. So in some ways, what I'm sharing today is my testimony of what has worked well for me. And what I've created for you guys today is sort of a 7-step process, sort of a checklist. I'm not going to presume everybody listening in today is planning to start their own business. That's part of what this workshop is about, is discernment, which I'm sure you guys have been learning a lot about as well. So just a little bit about me. This is who I really am, kind of the personal side of myself. So my last name looks like lies. Yes, it does. It's a fun name to have in our field, but it's pronounced Leese, right? Yeah. God's sense of humor, it just always brings me joy. So I am a wife and a mother and chief bottle washer here at home. And we have our 2 daughters who are pictured here in this lovely photo. My faith background includes Catholic, Protestant, 20 years agnostic, and always a seeker. And if these things mean anything to you to help get a better sense about me, I offer them to you as well. I totally relate to the Enneagram 2, an expressive type, harmony, and the good old INFJ, which I'm told a lot of spiritual directors really relate to the introverted type. So this is my personal background. And then my kind of more business background, why I'm sitting here sharing with you, is because by God's grace, here are the numbers. I am just beginning my 7th year in private practice, which I cannot even believe that. COVID years, it just seems like lightning speed. I hover around about 35 active clients, and I have a website I'll show you a little bit about in a little bit later. And we have about 85 blog articles, and I have a number of colleagues who have contributed as guest writers on the blog as well. To date, we have had a little over 38,000 unique visitors to the website, which is just amazing. Exponential growth also since COVID happened. I am affiliated with 2 faith communities here in my local area of Chicagoland. And this is pretty amazing. I've just launched a brand new online course about starting your own business, and I call it How to Get More Clients for Your Spiritual Direction Business. Again, all of that kind of by accident. And yet here I am and get to share with you to help encourage you as you're considering what's next on your own journey. So to go along with this workshop, this little PowerPoint presentation, as well as the handout. So now it's time to get that handout. This is a 5-page overview. We call it the Grow Your Spiritual Direction Business, a step-by-step checklist. So I'm going to walk us through pieces of this. This is also a handout that has lots of live links, the things that are in blue. So we will make sure that you can also get a copy of this online or emailed to you so that you can click on these links to draw you to all these great resources. For today, we're going to be highlighting, beginning with the 2nd page. And on there is step 1 called discernment. So the top of page 2, number 1, discern. Is this God's will for you at this time? So what we're going to do is in a minute, we're going to break into small groups, and I'll let you guys decide how to do that. If you want to do something different than you've done thus far in your training, or the same groups. Typically, I think 3 groups of 5 people, however that falls into place for you guys. I'm not sure how many are sitting in the room right now. And so I'm going to give you 15 minutes of chatting time and allow for up to 5 minutes of travel time. So if you need to go into a different room or a different part of the room. And so your assignment is this. And I'm going to also walk us through these questions before we break out. In the handout are these questions, and what's on the PowerPoint in front of you is kind of a summary of those questions, a little different wording perhaps. And so what I am hoping to do is to unlock the truth that is already within you, with questions. I personally think spiritual questions are the way to find the answers, if you will, or the responses. And so this discernment is about how is the divine guiding you at this time as you are finishing up your spiritual direction training? How are you being invited by the spirit to bless our planet in some way? It could be starting a business. It could be what you're already doing, and you'll do it in a new and expanded ways, different ways. It could be how you might be different with your family, friends. So I'm making no assumptions here, friends. Generally, people come through this part of our workshop saying, I was a little surprised by something I heard within me, within my spirit. Others will say, yep, I pretty much expected these sort of responses that came up. So, of course, the other part that's so beautiful about it is when we do it in a small group, we are also blessed by hearing other people's responses as well. So if you would allow me to take a couple moments to read these, I'll read them from the handout, but I invite you to, again, close your eyes, soften your gaze, and just receive these questions sitting there in your space. You can write things down if you want. You don't have to. Whatever is most helpful for you for these few moments before we break out into small group conversations. So I'll pause for a moment before I begin reading these questions. What am I longing for? What am I longing for? What can't I not do? What can't I not do? How are my borders being expanded? How are my borders being expanded? What needs to die within me to welcome the new? What needs to die within me to welcome the new? How do I best honor my true self? How do I best honor my true self? How am I uniquely called, gifted, and positioned? How am I uniquely called, gifted, positioned? What is mine to do? What is mine to do? Who are mine to love? Who are mine to love? Who is already coming to me? Who is already coming to me? How could the bold step of starting a spiritual direction business in itself be considered a spiritual practice? How could the bold step of starting a spiritual direction business in itself be considered a spiritual practice? What is holding me back from moving forward? What is holding me back from moving forward? What have I got to lose? What have I got to lose? I'm going to move us along. Continuing on the handout, at the bottom of page 2, we're talking about encouragement. You guys, as you are considering what's next on your journey about, do you start a business? Do you enter into some new role, expanded role in an area you've already been working or volunteering? It's really a vulnerable season for us. And so the encouragement to make sure the only voices you allow in are encouraging voices, and protecting yourself from discouraging voices. So to really drive this home, I'd like to read for you a little something from this beloved author you see on the screen. Her name is Hiro Boga. It's a great name. And from her book, it's an online resource called Dreaming in the Dark: Craft the New Story of Your Business for the Year Ahead. She calls herself a visionary entrepreneur, and these are the kind of folks she likes to work with. And so I have been blessed by her materials for several years. And she was the first one that really pushed me to consider using the word business. I still have a hard time with it. Spiritual direction practice just felt more okay. And there's nothing wrong with either word. It was just constantly stretching me. And Hiro, I mean, she doesn't know who I am, but I am just so blessed by her writing. She's really a creative writer, just beautiful writing. So I'm going to read for you some of her writing, and I think it comes from Dreaming in the Dark. So again, welcome you to close your eyes, soften your gaze, to receive this, to get a real flavor of what an encouraging voice can sound like. To coax my dreams to come out to play, my feet planted deep in the belly of the earth. To call something by its true name, to summon its soul, its stories. My possible futures dancing around me. To bring those other stories out of the subtle energy realms and into our world. To make things happen by calling the stories that speak to my heart. Exploring the many lives I have already created in other dimensions. A map to destinations that are already mine. The best places to plant the seeds of future stories, future selves. How to summon whatever I need. Which paths will lead me to where I want to go. Every story already lives inside me as pure potentiality. I'm going to read that again. It's so good. Every story already lives inside me as pure potentiality. I know where they live, how to find them and call them to me. The stories need me to come alive, to come out and play, to land here on earth. Incarnation. The story I'm experiencing right now is not the only story. The story I am experiencing right now is not the only story. There are other stories that are just as true. I can choose the story that is mine to live. I can step out of this story that does not belong to me any longer. And I can step into the ones that do. By swimming out of the current of my past and into a new story that is held in the creative flow of the universe. By honoring my vision, making friends with my stories that I have forgotten. Realizing there is another story swimming alongside me in a parallel current, calling for me to love her. A story that fills me with love. Follow the glimpses to see where they lead me, and the stories will join their flow to mine. Dreams, signs, feelings, invitations, all forming a river whose current carries me. The moon that lights my way. They lead me home, back to that place in my heart, in my soul's landscape, where I sing my stories into being. To choose from the many lives and the infinite possibilities that already exist in other dimensions, and to bring them down to earth. My ministry is a home where my creative spirit can flourish. My ministry flourishes at the tide line, where my genius and passion meet the world's need for love and wholeness, kindness and generosity, truth and justice, sustenance, shelter, light, and freedom for all. Amen. And that is what an encouraging voice can sound like. And I encourage you to settle for nothing less. There are additional suggestions of other beloved authors on the handout. I'll leave for you for another time. We're going to keep moving. We're going to get to some practical stuff now. Item 3 on your handout is on page 3. Here's some practical stuff. Equipping yourself with practical guides that help guide you through, these very many steps of starting spiritual direction practice. It's amazing to me, friends, that there are people who've done this and they've written about it to help us out. So these are my faves, and I want to highlight them for you. My beloved Teresa Blythe, who I believe has probably spoken for you guys. She's also my spiritual director and really my mentor. And she's the one that said, Laura, you really should think about helping other people start a business. And I said, really? And here we are 3 years later. Really want to encourage you to look at her beautiful material. It's a great basics about what is spiritual direction and great material about getting started in your own business. Bruce Tallman, his book, Finding Seekers. This is a great resource about either part-time, he does also talk about full-time business in spiritual direction, very practical. I think you really want these resources, and often you'll go back to them. What I love, one of the comments Bruce makes is, I'm going to give you lots of ideas. Do not do all of these tomorrow. I feel like, okay, I'll dog ear the thing and I'll go back kind of when I run out of ideas. I'll say, what did Bruce say? Oh, I never did do that one. And then I'll go back to it. So these are really reference materials I want you guys to consider. Bruce recommends the next book, Building Your Ideal Private Practice by Lynn Grodsky. So she is a therapist who had a very successful business, and other therapists came and said, can you help us start our own business? And so she wrote a book. She's got a great blog and website. And just today, she sent out an article about making money as a therapist and someone in a helping profession. Receiving payment for spiritual direction is often a sticky issue for us. Historically, priests and nuns did spiritual direction for one another and others, and nobody got paid specifically for spiritual direction and companionship. It was part of their day job. And so now in the last 30 years, lay people are entering the field like myself and so many others. And so this can be a sticky issue. And Lynn, I love her article. It just came out. So go to her website. You can just Google Lynn Grodsky and her website would pop up. So she is still actively writing. She gets you in this particular book. She walks you through a lot of detail about starting your business, even more than Bruce does. And the last resource I want to mention comes from our beloved Spiritual Directors International, SDI. And they've now done 3 of the Making a Living as a Spiritual Director classes, and they have a couple other webinar series as well. And if you are a member, they're selling it for, I think, what was it, $99 for all of it. They call it the anthology. So it is a lot of content. And what I love about that one, guys, is there's a lot of voices. I'm one of them. Hero's picture is right there next to mine on this slide. It just cracks me up. I just love her. But there's a lot of other voices. And so you can explore and see who can, who really speaks to your way of learning. So really encourage you guys to consider that. Even if you're not a member of SDI, it's of course still available to you for a little more cost. I'm going to just keep moving, and then we'll have any question and response if you'd like. All right, moving back to the handout. Item 4, establishing an online presence. So in this ever more digital world, especially since COVID came to visit us 3 years ago, as I'm speaking now in spring of 2023, the need for online presence is all more than ever. A website's ideal, but not absolutely necessary. One thing, wish I knew then, and I'll share it now, 7 years later. Oh my gosh. I thought, oh, I'm not going to hire somebody to help me because I want to be able to make changes all along. Well, you can hire somebody. I recommend you do. and you can find somebody for not a lot of cost to get it established. And then you can always go back in and make changes. If you say, golly, that's just way too much for me. SDI, Spiritual Directors International, does offer for you as a member that you can have your own little page that you can have an expanded profile about, and that you could send people to that. And so that is a good basic other option. And if that's not something you want, consider a Facebook page that is for your business. And those are by design public because you want anybody to be able to find those. I would say of all the social media outlets, Facebook is still has the largest following. I think it has more than all the others combined. But so it's sort of like, okay, if you do nothing else, a Facebook page for your business. So this kind of goes back to, okay, if you're going to have that, then you need a business name. Back to Bruce Tallman. His recommendation is you have a business name that is not your own personal name. In his experience, people just look at it a little bit more differently, as though it's more legitimate if it has a name other than your personal name. That was his comment. I've been getting far more into the digital marketing world to help people find me and my website. And a different school of thought is if you use your own name, it could be about anything. It could be about spiritual direction. It could be about any other area of interest you want it to be. So again, there's no one right answer for this. There's no only one right way to do it. There's what works for you. I called mine Streams of Grace Spiritual Direction. What I love about that also is it allows me to now bring in this piece of consulting about helping people start their own business. It allows me to bring in other voices. I also support other spiritual directors who are just getting started and ask them to be guest writers, blog authors on my website. So it's just sort of a place where it's not just about me, but that's my own preference. This, again, is an area of discernment. All of this is. All of these social media outlets I show here, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, really encourage you to consider which ones are best for you. All right. Item 5 on the handout, listing on dedicated spiritual direction websites. Even if you don't have your own website, you can still have a profile. SDI, Spiritual Directors International, the largest. So if a person goes to Google, which is the most popular search engine, over 90% of searches happen through Google. So you want to work with Google. So if a person types in spiritual director or spiritual direction, SDI is popping up every time. And so if you list nowhere else, list on SDI. That is worth your money and your energy. The other option that is also available, Grafted Life Ministries. This is with a more evangelical bent of spiritual directors. So I really want to encourage you to look at that. There's another one on your handout called Catholic Spiritual Directors. You want to check that out. And I know there's one for the Unitarian Universalist and for spiritual directors of color. And those are not on my handout. Don't know why, but you want to know about those too. If you are part of a faith community or some other kind of community in your local area, consider asking them about having a page on their website. Bruce Tallman has a great comment about this, that if it's your local congregation, for example, and you have a page on their website, it is another way for them to provide service to the local community. Sometimes we think, oh, golly, I feel guilty or bad about asking them. Actually, it's sort of a mutual benefit. So consider doing that. I have 2 names on here. These are my own local congregations. My local Catholic parish and the WSC is my local Methodist church that I'm affiliated with. So this helps them. They'll actually show up in more searches if you have a page on their website as well. And Google, when people are searching, especially in your local region, if you are listed on other pages beyond your own website, for example, or any social media, Google likes that and will find may refer people to you more frequently if you list on other places as well. And, I keep talking about guest authors and writers. So when people write an article on my website, that gives them more authority. It's funny, this word, but this is the way Google looks at it. So if it's on their own website, it doesn't carry as much weight if it's on someone else's website that they author. So that's just a little aside. All right. Addressing small business startup requirements. We're on the bottom of page 3, item 6. So very briefly, these are the basic topics you want to cover about starting a business. I have a little image here from HubSpot Academy. They are my favorite place to go to. It is all free training online. I worked through their certificate program 2 years ago, and they said, Laura, this expires. Actually, I did it in 2020, and it expired after 2 years because the digital world of marketing is moving so fast. And so I did a little bit of brush up of learning kind of how has it changed. So HubSpot Academy, I think, is just fantastic about creating a business plan and all these kind of small business topics you want to look at. All right. Insurance on the handout, I list the insurance agency that SDI recommends. Insurance American, what is it? American Professional Agency. And so for around $100, you can have insurance, the most basic. To me, this is sort of a peace of mind. Do you need it? No. Is it nice to have? Sure. And it's not a lot of money. So consider doing it. Again, these are all for your discernment. Getting paid. I mentioned getting paid earlier. So you want to know how to actually receive that payment. And so, all of those basic tools, PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, look into those and see what works best. Some people still bring checks. So good, so delightful, good old fashioned checks. Mostly that's for people I see in person, though a couple of my others online want to mail me a check, and that's fine. You also need a way to track that income. We, of course, want to behave with integrity, and we report our income. And so I use QuickBooks, which is an online tool from like the Quicken and Intuit people. And so it's a pretty low cost way to track your income. And finally, marketing. So back to HubSpot Academy, they have great training and teaching about marketing. I also have launched this new online course about starting your business, how to attract more clients. And I would say 2/3 of my course is about marketing, which there is a link on this handout as well. So it's just another way to go about marketing. My stuff is all about spiritual direction marketing. HubSpot is kind of marketing in general. All right, finally. So because 7 is a great number in the spiritual world, we end on item 7, finding other spiritual directors to encourage or other people who you can bless, right? Who are mine to bless, who are mine to love. And so these concepts come again from my beloved author, Hiro Boga, to be a cupbearer for someone else, to create a lap for them, to illuminate a flight path, to light someone up, to be a home for everyone you meet today. What I love about the online digital community through your website, your blog, social media, any and all of that you do, even if you're at the grocery store, we have no idea how a smile is going to bless someone and the ripple effect that has. And so I just want to honor this opportunity we have, especially for those of us called into the kind of the helping world as spiritual companions and directors. There's just such potential here, and the world so needs this. You guys know this. When COVID first began, and I published a little article in an SDI publication about starting a business, and I had one-on-one chats with people, and they said to me, oh, I was going to start a business, but then COVID happened. And I thought, oh, exactly. This is the time to do it. We need it so much. So 3 years ago, we had no idea how to go about this. The digital world is just exponential growth. since COVID. And so I want to encourage you guys, the fact you're in this training now is the time. Now is the time. Okay. So, final bits on the handout. A little more encouragement, my little bio in the page 4, page 5, finally, a link to this course I mentioned earlier about starting a business. I'm available for consultation if you would like to chat with me. I keep mentioning about guest writing on my website. Check it out, streamsgrace.com, and see if you are a writer, even if you're not a writer. I am not a writer, and yet I have 85 articles because mostly I borrow from the mystics. I love them. The older, the better, as well as our more contemporary mystics, Anouwen and Joyce Rupp. So I take their stuff, give them all the credit. And as one person said to me, oh, I see what you're doing, Laura. You're bringing this ancient teaching to a modern audience. I said, sure, that sounds right. Remember, I'm an expressive type. I don't want to just hold it in. I want to share it. And frankly, that's why I have a website. Apparently, I have a blog. I didn't know I had one until somebody told me one day. It's a blog. So it's always the accidental entrepreneur. So, whew, that's a lot of talking. Thank you for listening. Questions, comments?
I have a question. So there's a lot of with underline. Are those links to something that are on your website that I need to tell them?
Yeah, thank you. It's really hard to hear you guys in the classroom, but I think I got what you said. So in the handout, any of the material that's underlined are live links. So here are 2 ways you can get this handout electronically. One, Peter, would you please send the class the electronic version of this, the PDF? Thank you, my friend. Secondly, you are welcome to go to my website. So something I've learned recently is digital marketing. So this is where I'm going to put in my plug for marketing is not a dirty word. We did this webinar for SDI back in August, and somebody talked about that. And they said, you know what? Marketing is educating. Marketing is not sales, not that sales is bad, but it's different, especially in the digital world. Marketing is helping people. When they go to Google and they type in a word, they're looking for information. You guys probably do that all the time, like myself. And all these blog articles pop up, and it's helpful. And so we want people to be able to be blessed and to find things. So on my website, so this is my new thing. As soon as you come on my website, slowly, after a few seconds, will come one of those pop-ups, and it will say, would you be interested in, I think this one is the checklist, the thing you guys have in front of you. And would you like the Growing Your Spiritual Direction Business checklist? Type in your email address here, and it leads you to how to download the checklist. And then you're in my email system. You can unsubscribe all the time. At any time, I unsubscribe to things all the time. Like, just give me the freebie and I'm leaving. That's fine. Some people want to stick around, and that's great. And I want to bless them. Some people will say, oh, maybe I want to look at your class now. So here's the thing, right? Even with your blog articles, people will say, well, golly, if they're going to give this away for free, what might they give me if I'm willing to pay something, right? If I'm willing to come to you for spiritual direction. So anyhow, 2 ways to get it. 1, Peter's probably just going to send it to you from our class. 2, go to my website, streamsgrace.com. And there's actually sections in there about the consultation piece. Will guide you through. You can look at this online course. I offer it in 2 ways. I offer the free preview, which gives you, I think, 10% of the course. It's a lot of great content in itself, so encourage you to go to that. And if you think, golly, I want to buy the course, it's $197. The beauty of it is, yeah, there's a lot of great content, a lot of the marketing stuff. But I think what I'm learning even more from people who this is their main thing is online course training, is the online community. So we have, oh my gosh, almost 40 people who have signed up for the online community. I have 7 paying students, yay, after I launched 2 months ago. Unbelievable. And we have about 40 people, most of whom are just along for the free part, and that's fine. And I put articles on there all the time. The one I mentioned to you earlier from Lynn Grodsky about making your peace about accepting payment as a therapist, as a spiritual director. And so I'm constantly putting content out there, and it's a place where you can get encouragement. So again, encouraging voices, only positive encouragement. So anyhow, yes, live links, and thank you for letting me get in my little soapbox and go way off from your question. Other questions or comments?
I'll share a little story. You mentioned grocery store. And can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
And I was at the grocery store one day, and the canvas bag I happened to bring in was Spiritual Breakfast International. And so I set it down as I, began to put stuff in it. The cashier looked at it and goes, "What's that?" Turns out her husband is in a point of transition and might really need a spiritual direction. So I got to explain about spiritual direction and, talk about SBI and it's my part too. I didn't hear you, but, maybe the husband went to FBI and like that, but it's still, just, you never know when those moments happen and what form they're going to take.
I love it. Yeah, I kind of say like the divine acting behind my back. Not that, he's up to no good at all. It's just more, it was accidental. Like right from a tote bag. I love that. It's great. It's good. Thank you. Other comments or questions? So I like to end my part of the workshop with this beloved prayer from Thomas Merton, a spiritual director of our time. And, sometimes people will say, well, I don't want to do it wrong. I don't want to fail. And I don't want to make a mistake. And I had a colleague years ago who said, the word mistake, kind of separating it out, a miss and a take. I'll just do another take. Back in the day when we had cameras that had film in them. Today, it's all the easier. If it's digital camera, it's okay. I can easily delete it. There is no mistake, especially as you guys are looking at the idea of starting a business as a spiritual journey in itself. I kind of tease the coming to Jesus moment. As I'm embarking on email marketing, I thought, oh, I don't want to do that. And finally made my peace with it, sort of. All right, I'll try it. I'll see how this works. And I do it wrong. And then when I finally get it right, I'm like, oh, finally. I mean, it is a journey. And these digital marketing gurus, experts say you need to be constantly learning. And these are guys who have millions of followers and all that great jazz. And they want to train and help others. I'm like, thank you. And I'm like double their age, but that's okay. Always learning. Even as you guys are about to finish your certificate program, I hope I'm not the first. I'm probably not the first to say you've only just begun. Sorry. Take a break. Allow yourself downtime, retreat, silence and solitude. And when you're ready, the world is waiting. Any other comments or questions before we close with this beloved prayer from Thomas Merton? Again, if you're comfortable closing your eyes or softening your gaze, please receive these beloved words. My Lord God, I have no idea where I am going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end. Nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think that I'm following your will does not mean that I'm actually doing so. But but I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. I'm going to say it again because it's so good. But I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope that I have that desire in all that I'm doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Hallelujah. I'm going to say it again. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it. Therefore, will I trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. And so, Holy One, we give thanks. I pray your hand of protection and provision upon each of us gathered here today, body, mind, and spirit. Oh, come. Amen.